Welcome to Moon and Fire. I'm Emily Bailey, founder of Whole and Wild, where I guide women back to their sacred wisdom through ritual and cyclical living. I'm creating this sacred space for your whole self to be here. Your wisdom, your shadows, your longings, and your fierce power. This is a podcast for the woman who knows there's more. More depth, more magic, more of her untamed essence waiting to be remembered and unleashed. I believe with every fiber of my being that we are whole beings designed to live our full range of experience. Our sacred cycles aren't just something that happen to us. They're an ancient map, an invitation to deeply know ourselves, to dance through our own becoming. When we finally honor these rhythms, embracing both our shadows and our light, our deep rest and our fierce action, we awaken something profound. We reclaim a fire that has always lived within us, a radiant power that doesn't just transform our own lives, but ignites change in the world around us. Remember the sacred cycles, reclaim your radiant fire, unleash your intuitive magic. Welcome home, sacred woman. Let's begin. Welcome back, sacred woman. This is Moon and Fire, and I'm Emily Bailey. Thank you for returning to this journey of remembering your wholeness. Last time we opened the door to understanding the power of living in harmony with our natural rhythms. We explored how our modern world is structured around the 24-hour solar cycle, while women's bodies naturally align with the 28-day lunar cycle. We talked about the medicine of ritual and how creating intentional practices can help us reclaim our connection to our cyclical wisdom. Today, we're actually going to go deeper. We're going to explore what it actually means to live cyclically, to understand, honor, and work with the natural phases that move through us. Whether you're someone who menstruates, someone who no longer bleeds, or someone whose cycle expresses itself differently, this wisdom belongs to you. I believe that understanding our cyclical nature is one of the most powerful acts of reclamation available to us as women. When we begin to recognize the patterns that move through us, we step out of the linear, push through at all costs model that our society values into a way of being that honors our natural ebbs and flows. In this episode, we'll explore the science behind our cycles, the 4 distinct phases that we move through, practical ways to honor those phases, and how to create a life that's aligned with your unique rhythms. I'm also going to share a practical tool that you can begin using immediately to deepen your connection with your cyclical nature. Before we begin, I want to invite you to just take a moment and take a deep breath. Feel yourself here in this moment. Notice where you are in your own cycle today. Whether you feel inward or outward, energized or reflective, creative or receptive. There's no right or wrong way to be. There's only what's true for you today. Let's begin this remembering together. Let's start with understanding the essence of our cyclical nature. While men's hormones typically follow a consistent 24-hour pattern that resets every single day, women's hormonal patterns flow in a more complex rhythm that spans approximately 28 days, mirroring the cycle of the moon. And this isn't just a poetic coincidence, it's our biological design. Our bodies are literally orchestrated by a symphony of hormones that rise and fall in predictable patterns, influencing not just our reproductive systems, but our energy levels, our cognitive functions, our creative capacities, and even our nervous system balance. Speaking of nervous system, there's something fascinating happening there too. Ideally, our nervous system should spend about 80% of its time in the parasympathetic state. That's the rest and digest mode where we feel calm, creative, and connected. The other 20% would be in sympathetic mode, our fight or flight response that helps us respond to genuine threats and challenges. But in our modern world, most of us are living with this ratio completely reversed. 80% in sympathetic activation and only 20% in parasympathetic regulation. We're constantly responding to emails, notifications, deadlines, and demands that keep our stress response activated. This chronic sympathetic dominance is particularly disruptive to our cyclical rhythms. When we're constantly in fight or flight, we actually override the natural ebbs and flows of our energy. We push through fatigue, ignoring our body's signals, and try to maintain consistent productivity regardless of where we are in our cycle. This disconnection is one of the primary reasons why so many women experience burnout, hormonal imbalances, and a deep sense of misalignment. But our cycles aren't actually just limited to our menstrual rhythm. We're woven into many cyclical patterns. There's our menstrual cycle, the approximate 28-day cycle of our reproductive system. There's the lunar cycle, the 29.5-day journey of the moon from new to full and back again. There are seasonal cycles, the shifting energies of spring, summer, autumn, and winter that influence our environment and our bodies. And there are life cycles, the larger transitions from maiden to mother to wild woman to crone that mark the passage of our lives. Each of these cycles offer us wisdom if we learn to listen. Each has something to teach us about the natural rhythms of expansion and contraction, of doing and being, of expression and reflection. The beauty is that these cycles aren't separate from us. They are us. Your body already knows how to flow with these rhythms. It's not something you need to learn so much as remember. Your cells, your tissues, your very DNA carries this ancient wisdom. What we're doing together is simply removing the layers of conditioning that have disconnected us from this knowing. The messages that told us to be consistent, to push through, to ignore our body's signals in service of productivity or other people's expectations. When we actually remember our cyclical nature, we're not adopting some new age concept. We're returning to our original design. We're remembering what our grandmothers knew, that our power as women lives in our ability to flow between different states of being, to harness the unique gifts of each phase, and to honor the wisdom that moves through our body in rhythmic waves. Now let's explore the 4 distinct phases of our cycle. This is one of my favorite things because I think it offers us a different, just like accessible language to really dig into what this means in the everyday for us. Throughout history and across cultures, these phases have been observed, honored, and named in different ways. I use the archetypes of Crone, Maiden, Mother, and Wild Woman, each representing a unique energy and wisdom that moves through us. This is going to be an overview. Obviously, you can dig in much more in depth, but I want to give you something really practical and with enough information that you can really start to move with it while also not overwhelming. So phase 1 is the crone. It's also called inner winter, your menstrual phase, the dark moon or the new moon, or the wise woman. You can call it whatever serves you best, whatever lands in your spirit that feels resonant. When you begin bleeding, you enter the crone phase. It's your inner winter. This typically comprises days 1 to 5 of your cycle during menstruation. This is when the veil between conscious and unconscious mind is thinnest, offering you profound access to your inner wisdom. Energy naturally turns inward, creating space for rest, reflection, and receiving. In crone energy, you may experience heightened dream activity, stronger meditation experiences, and spontaneous insights. Your body asks for more rest, and honoring this need creates powerful healing. This is your most spiritually receptive time as well, when downloads and visions often occur. It's a sacred time for rest reflection, visioning, and releasing what no longer serves you. Spiritual practices and receiving guidance. Your Crone energy brings wisdom, surrender, and the power of letting go. Phase 2 is the Maiden. This one's also called the inner spring, the pre-ovulatory phase, the waxing moon, or the new beginning. The Maiden phase also begins as your bleeding ends, and it continues until ovulation. While it's technically still part of the follicular phase that started with day 1, this post-menstrual time brings a distinctly different energy. As bleeding concludes, a fresh energy emerges. There's a creative, dynamic experience that's filled with possibility. It's your body's springtime. Estrogen begins rising more rapidly, and it brings a sense of renewal with it. In Maiden energy, you'll most likely feel more social, more optimistic, and ready to initiate new projects. Your communication skills are heightened, and your thinking becomes more linear and focused, and you might actually notice increased physical energy. The veil between your conscious and unconscious mind is actually thicker here, making this phase more outwardly focused. It's an excellent time for starting new projects, making plans, connecting with others, physical activity, and presenting ideas to the world. Your Maiden energy, it has a freshness, an innocence, and a courage to begin. Phase 3 is the Mother. This is also called the inner summer, the ovulatory phase, the full moon, or high power. As estrogen peaks and your body prepares to ovulate, you enter the Mother phase, your inner summer. This is typically around days 12 to 16 of your cycle. This is when you likely feel more energetic, more confident, and more visible. Your body is at its most fertile, not just reproductively, but creatively and socially as well. In Mother energy, you're naturally magnetic, articulate, and capable of holding multiple perspectives. Your nurturing capacities are heightened, as is your ability to collaborate and connect deeply with others. This is your power phase, when you can bring projects to fruition and share your gifts most effortlessly with the world. This is an ideal time for presentations, difficult conversations, social events, launching projects, collaborative work, and celebrating achievements. Your Mother energy brings abundance, nurturing, and the power to manifest. Phase 4 is the Wild Woman. This is also called inner autumn, the luteal phase, the waning moon, or the enchantress. After ovulation, progesterone rises and you enter your Wild Woman phase, your inner autumn. Remember, this is leading up to the next phase, which is your menstruation. So this is really the time right before you start to bleed. After ovulation, this longer phase typically spans until your next period begins. So this is when your intuition sharpens drastically and your capacity for discernment increases. The veil between the conscious and the unconscious mind begins to thin, which again allows access to deeper knowing. In Wild Woman energy, you might notice increased sensitivity, both emotionally and physically. Your BS detector is highly calibrated and you can see truth more clearly. You may feel a natural pull inward, less interested in pleasing others, and more focused on what's authentic. Your creative energy shifts from outward expression to inner insight. This is a really powerful time for editing and refining work, for speaking truth, for setting boundaries, problem solving, deep creative work, and trusting your intuition. Your Wild Woman energy brings discernment, truth-telling, and magical insight. Remember that these phases aren't rigid categories. They flow into one another, sometimes with clear boundaries and sometimes more subtly. Even if you no longer menstruate or have irregular cycles, these energies still move through you, often aligning with the moon's phases or showing up in other cyclical patterns in your life. So now that we understand that there are these 4 phases, let's talk about how to practically work with this wisdom. This isn't just about creating rigid rules or adding another layer of perfectionism to your life. It's about developing a relationship with your cycle that helps you flow more naturally with your rhythms. Let's start with tracking. There are many ways to track your cycle, and I encourage you to find what works best for you. Some women use apps like Clue or Flow. Others prefer a physical journal or calendar. What matters most isn't the method, but the practice of paying attention. If you're just beginning, start by noting the first day of your period. This gives you a foundation for understanding your cycle length. From there, you can expand what you track. Consider noting your energy levels, emotional states, physical sensations, creative impulses, social needs, and intuitive experiences. Look for patterns over several months. When do you typically feel most energetic? When do you crave more solitude? When does your creativity peak? When do you feel most intuitive? These patterns will reveal your cyclical fingerprint. For those with irregular cycles, tracking becomes even more valuable. By noting how you feel day to day, you can begin to recognize your body's signals, regardless of whether they follow a predictable timeline. You're looking for the quality of each phase, not just its timing. If you no longer menstruate, consider tracking with the moon instead. The new moon aligns with the Crone energy, and the waxing moon with the Maiden energy, the full moon with the mother, and the waning moon with the wild woman. You can use the moon's phases as a guide for honoring your own cyclical nature. Common challenges often arise when working with your cycle. Many women tell me, but I can't just cancel my meetings when I'm in my Crone phase. Or what if I have a presentation scheduled during my wild woman phase? This is where the art of cycle awareness comes in. You don't need to completely rearrange your life to honor your cycle. Instead, look for small ways to support yourself. If you know that you'll need to be in mother energy for a presentation, but you're in your Crone phase, give yourself extra rest beforehand. If you have deep Crone work to do, but you find yourself in your mother phase, create a ritual to help you access that inner winter, even briefly. The goal isn't to only do certain activities in certain phases, but rather to acknowledge what your body naturally needs and provide more support when you're asking it to express an energy that's not currently at the forefront. Another challenge that women also face is feeling disconnected from their cycle due to birth control, PCOS, endometriosis, or other conditions that affect regular cycling. If this is your experience, I just want to affirm that you still have access to your cyclical wisdom. Your body still carries these archetypal energies, and you can work with them by paying attention to subtler cues. Notice the quality of your dreams. Notice your creative impulses. Notice your social needs. These can guide you to understand where you are in your cycle, even when the physical markers are less obvious. For those using hormonal birth control, you may find that tracking becomes more about your internal experience than physical symptoms. The pill, for example, suppresses ovulation, but doesn't eliminate your body's cyclical nature entirely. Remember that adapting to cycle awareness is actually a practice. It's not a destination. Some months you'll flow beautifully with your phases, and others might feel more disjointed. That's perfectly normal. The power is in continuing to pay attention, in honoring what you notice, and continuing to create space for your whole cyclical self to exist. Now let's bring the cyclical wisdom into your everyday life with some really practical applications. This is where the magic happens. When we begin to align our schedules, our work, our relationships, and our rituals with natural rhythms. First, let's talk about creating a cycle-aligned schedule. This doesn't mean completely overhauling your life, but rather making intentional adjustments where you can. Consider color coding your calendar based on your phases. That's one of my favorite ways to do this. When you see a week dominated by Crone or wild woman energy, you might choose to schedule fewer social commitments and more reflective time. If you're someone who plans your month in advance, try sitting down with your cycle awareness to guide you. For instance, if you know you're going to be in mother phase during the second week of the month, that might be an ideal time to schedule important presentations, launches, or social events. If you anticipate being in Crone phase during the last week, perhaps you can pick a lighter workload or schedule activities that support rest and reflection. For those with more flexibility in their schedules, you might design your ideal week for each phase. What would a perfect Maiden week look like for you? How about a Mother week, Wild Woman week, or Crone week? While you may not be able to implement these ideal weeks perfectly, having them as templates can actually really guide your choices. For those with less flexibility, focus on what I call micro alignments. These are small ways to honor your current phase even without a fixed schedule. So if you're in Crone phase, but you have a full work day, maybe you can take a 5-minute break every hour to just close your eyes and breathe. Maybe you wear colors that feel supportive of your inner winter, or you can even carry a stone or a symbol that reminds you to move more slowly. So all of these options are available to you, and I really challenge you to get creative with yourself as you explore this. Now let's explore planning with your phases. This is about matching your activities to your natural energies when possible. Consider creating a list of activities that feel aligned with each phase. I'm going to give you some examples. In the Crone phase, you might prioritize reviewing what isn't working and what is. Journaling and reflection. Gentle movement like yin yoga. Clearing space physically and emotionally. Canceling what's unnecessary. In the Maiden phase, consider brainstorming new ideas, starting projects, learning and researching, connecting with new people, and setting intentions. In the Mother phase, you might focus on completing projects, having important conversations, teaching or presenting, networking and collaborating, and celebrating achievements. In the Wild Woman phase, consider editing and refining your work, setting boundaries, focused problem solving, deep creative work, and engaging your intuition. Now let's talk about creating simple rituals for each phase. These don't need to be elaborate ceremonies. Even small practices can help you honor your cyclical nature. So for the Crone phase, a simple bleeding ritual might involve creating a cozy space with candles or tea or comfortable pillows, placing your hands on your womb and thanking your body, setting an intention for what you're releasing this cycle, and giving yourself permission to rest deeply. Giving yourself permission can actually be a ritual. For the Maiden phase, a renewal ritual might include spending time in nature and just noticing signs of growth, writing down what's beginning to emerge in you, moving your body in ways that feel expansive, and clearing your space for new energy. I think a lot of the time in my Maiden phase, I find myself clearing out my workspace. It's become a monthly ritual for me to just clear everything out and have a reset spot. And for the Mother phase, a peak energy ritual could be adorning yourself in a way that feels powerful. Maybe there's a certain piece of jewelry or fingernail polish or way you do your makeup that feels different. Do that. Speaking affirmations about your gifts and your strengths to yourself as well as to other people. Dancing or moving in ways that help you feel your radiance. And celebrating what you've accomplished, no matter how small. For the Wild Woman phase, the truth-telling ritual might involve creating a private space to express unfiltered thoughts. I highly recommend that. Journaling what your intuition is revealing. moving any stuck emotion through your body, and setting intentional boundaries. For those who don't menstruate or want to work with additional cycles, aligning with the moon phases can be deeply supportive. You might create a new moon ritual for your Crone phase for setting intentions. You can use the waxing moon for the Maiden phase to build momentum. You can celebrate the full moon in your mother phase with a gratitude practice. And you can use the waning moon in the wild woman phase for release work. Remembering that living cyclically isn't about perfection is really important. It's about awareness. Some days you'll flow easily with your natural rhythms, and other days external demands will take precedence. What matters is that you're developing a relationship with your cycle, listening to its wisdom and honoring what you hear when you can. Like any relationship, when there's respect, there's dignity. The beauty of this practice is that it grows over time. Each month brings new insights, new patterns, new opportunities to align more deeply with your natural rhythm. Trust this process and know that even small steps towards cyclical living can make profound shifts in how you experience your life and your power. Before we close today, I want to share a practical tool that you can begin using immediately to deepen your connection with your cyclical nature. I call this the Cyclical Awareness Compass, and it's a simple yet powerful practice for tuning in to you right now where you are. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down. Place one hand on your heart and the other on your lower belly. Take 3 deep breaths, allowing your awareness to settle into your body. Now I'm going to guide you through 4 questions that will help you locate yourself in your current cycle. There's no right or wrong answers, only what's true for you in this moment. First, notice your energy. Is it rising outward like the dawn? Bright and expansive like midday? Beginning to turn inward like dusk? Or drawing deep within like midnight? Just notice, without judgment, where your energy naturally wants to move. Second, notice your mind. Is it filled with new ideas and possibilities? Focused and clear? Discerning and insightful? Or quiet and receptive? Again, just notice the quality of your thoughts right now. Third, notice your heart. Is it opening to new connections, expansive and nurturing, setting boundaries and seeking truth, or needing sanctuary and personal space? Honor whatever you find there. And finally, notice your intuition. Is it just beginning to whisper, supporting your outward movement, becoming more insistent, or speaking clearly and deeply? Notice how your inner knowing is communicating with you today. Now, bringing together what you've noticed about your energy, your mind, your heart, and your intuition, which phase resonates most with where you are now? Are you in Maiden energy, Mother energy, Wild Woman energy, or Crone energy? Remember, you might not align perfectly with just one phase. You might be transitioning between phases or experiencing different aspects of multiple phases. That's completely natural. What matters is developing this relationship with your cyclical nature, learning its language, honoring its wisdom. I invite you to practice the Cyclical Awareness Compass daily for the next week. It takes just a few minutes, but over time, it will strengthen your relationship with your cycle and help you make choices that honor your current phase. You might want to keep a simple journal of what you notice. Patterns might emerge that reveal your unique cyclical fingerprint. This awareness becomes a powerful guide for navigating your life with more ease, more flow, and more authenticity. As we come to the close of our time together, I want to acknowledge the sacred work you're doing by remembering your cyclical nature. In a world that honors the linear, the constant, and the unwavering, it does take courage to reclaim your natural rhythms, to honor the ebbs and flows of your energy and wisdom. Remember that this remembering is both ancient and revolutionary. Your grandmothers lived by these rhythms, and yet in our modern context, honoring your cyclical nature becomes a radical act of self-reclamation. In the next episode, I'm so excited because I'm going to dive into this shift from managing to stewarding. They're actually not the same thing. And when we show up believing that we're stewarding our world, but we're actually acting as a manager, there's a cost. And I'm so excited to share with you how this comes back to reclaiming our radiant fire as women. Until then, I invite you to continue with the Cyclical Awareness Compass practice. Notice where you are in your cycle each day and make one small choice that honors that phase. Perhaps it's allowing yourself an extra hour of rest in Crone phase, or speaking your truth boldly in the Wild Woman phase. These small acts of alignment create powerful shifts over time. May you remember that your cycles are sacred. May you trust the wisdom that lives in your body. May you honor both your quiet moments and your fierce fire. And may you flow with grace through all your seasons. Remember the sacred cycles, reclaim your radiant fire, unleash your intuitive magic. Thank you for being here, sacred woman. Until next time.